everyone. Welcome to the 27th edition of Poetry Africa. And our online engagement for today is Roots and Verses, Afriku, the art of haiku in the rest of Africa and South Africa. I'll be engaging poets Ajay Ageyeba, Philippa de Villiers, Raphael D. Abidon, Fumane Ntlabane, and Saul Ramatsui. And so welcome to our poets.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll briefly introduce our poets. So we have Dr. Raphael Diabodoni. Dr. Raphael Diabodoni was born in Udine, Italy, and lives in Pretoria. He's a writer, scholar, editor, and translator, and reads poetry regularly in South Africa and overseas. His poems are featured in several national and international journals, magazines, and anthologies. He is the poetry editor of the literary magazine BKO and South Africa's representative of AHN African Haiku Network. He's an honorary research fellow at the Human Sciences Research Council and a research fellow at UNISA. His research focuses on spoken word poetry, poetic inquiry, poetry therapy. His published works include Sunnyside Nut Walk, and Salt Water, and The Bitter Herb, and Poesis Selete. I hope I got that one right. So, and Saul Ramatsui is also known as a Soul Tree. The founder of Soul Tree Media and Project Translation is a writer, translator, performer, and theater maker born and bred in Limpopo, South Africa. His love for art and storytelling was sparked by his grandmother's storytelling. He uses imagery and is inspired by music and movement and the marriage between art forms via sign language to reflect and question and interrogate. His work on growing in South Africa and his recent work speaks on the uncovering of his family history and devolving in questioning thought and existence. His work has been in several local theaters, television, and magazines. And Philippa de Villiers lectures in creative writing at Wits University, Johannesburg, and is a distinguished alumnus of Rhodes University, Journalism and Media Studies. She is a board member of the African Poetry Book Fund. She worked as a television screenwriter for 10 years, studied at the Le Cour School of Theatre in Paris. Her one-woman show, Original Skin, toured national and to Germany. She wrote Taller Than Buildings, The Everyday Wife, and Ice Cream Headache in My Born in 2017. She was the 2014 Commonwealth Poet. She co-edited the poems of Kiribatso Hutisitile in 2023, alongside Uhuru Fala, and her work appears in relations to 2023 Idina Nanakua Brua Homad, New Daughters of Africa, Yellow Means Stay, which was edited in 2019, among others, including journals Wasafari, Boba, Coach, Stanzas, New Corn. She has performed at various local and international poetry festivals, including Poetry Africa 2022, 2007, and 2010, and the Berlin Pusis Festival, and many more. On the other hand, Fumane Ntlabane is a Johannesburg-based South African poet, writer, presenter, and radio personality. She is inspired by the strength that lies in the human form and often writes about human experiences in the body of a Black woman in society. The poet began her journey in the arts with CSP in 2017, where she went on to participate in the Gauteng Provincial Slam, where she placed in the top 5. She has performed on many stages in and around Johannesburg, including being invited as a performer in the side multiple authors, and in 2019 she was published in the annual So Blacky anthology. She is a co-author of a book, Color Me Melanin, which is a coloring book accompanied by praise poetry that teaches self-love to the young African. She's co-host the Queen Fortress, a podcast centered on poetry, music, and literature. Ajay is a lecturer, translator, and editor, and a PhD student at the University of Waikato in New Zealand. He's the co-founder of African Haiku Network, Poetry Foundation, Ghana, and the Mamba Journal, African First International Haiku Journal. Ajay is a worldwide anthologized poet and winner of several international awards. He specializes in Afriku, a nativized version of the Japanese haiku poetry, which tells the African story. His debut haiku collection, Afriku, Red Moon Presses, was published in 2016 and has been commended by Prof. Wala Soyinki. Recent haiku poetry collection, including Scary Crow, which was published in 2022 by Button Hook Press, and The Tales of the Kite in 2023 by Button Hook Press. So let's get on to it. Raphael, I want to just for us to define what haiku poetry is and its origins and how it is structured.
Thank you, Ngezwa, and thank you, Poetry Africa, for this invitation. I think it's really a historic moment to talk about haiku in South Africa. Really, I think it's the very first time that we have the opportunity to meet and discuss this poetic form. And I'm glad to be here doing it with some of my favorite haiku writers. Let's start again, as you say, with the form, with the definition of haiku. Let's start from the name, which roughly translates haiku into light verse, where light can be interpreted as the light, the illumination, but also the weight. It can be a light verse in terms of weight, but also an illuminating verse. And it's a term that was coined for the first time by one of the masters of haiku, which was Shiki. And haiku originally is a Japanese, as we all know, Japanese traditional poetry form that sort of was born out of existing poetic form in Japan, in particular waka, which was a form that consisted in 5-7-5 and then 7-7 syllables, or rather more, 31 more. We will talk maybe later about syllables because there's a lot of controversy about syllables, and the Japanese language doesn't count syllables like the English one. So when I'm saying syllables, you have to keep in mind that we're talking about the original Japanese form. And so out of waka there was the opening verses of this form, which was called oku, and the masters, particularly Basho, started to take this oku, these first 3 lines, 5-7-5 in Japanese, and develop it into a form, per se. That's how haiku was born. And obviously, my research, following also the steps of Ajay and many others, is focused on how this form, has been used, has been taken from Japan and then brought to Africa, to South Africa, and to the English language, etc., and how it has transformed in the process. Because we know that forms originate in different parts of the world, and then we poets, because we are poets, we explore every possible geographical area in the world in search of inspiration. And poets take forms that are original from a certain area, and they transform them and they use them in their language. That has happened historically. Think about the sonnet invented by us Italians and then taken, to England and made it, into the English sonnet. But the examples are countless. So that's where haiku comes from. We all know it's a Japanese traditional form, and perhaps I want to pass the baton to Ajay, who's the pioneer in this study of the history of haiku and how it has been, developed and how it has spread in the African continent.
Thank you very much, Raphael. And just to add on to you, your question to Ajay is, please, in your description and just an engagement, make us understand this term that you've coined, which is Afriku, right? So there are 2 points that I want you to engage. The one Raphael has just handed the baton to about, and this and Afriku as a form.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you, Poetry Africa, for the opportunity to be on this platform. Raphael has given us a lot about the background of haiku. In brief, we say that the haiku originated from Japan somewhere in the 17th century. And I'm a poet, and I came across haiku somewhere 2010, and I became fascinated by the brevity of the verse. And one thing that I observed was that the haiku was mostly pioneered by the English haiku, if I should say English language haiku. We get to know haiku through the English language. Had it not been the English language, many of us had been lost. We will never hear about Basho, the Master Shiki, and the rest. So my encounter with haiku was through the English language haiku. And I thought that there could also be an opportunity for Africans to explore, to use the haiku form to tell the African story. So coming back to Afriku, Afriku is from the word, it's a coinage from 2 words, Africa and haiku. I was thinking that we could use Afriku as a way to symbolize or to distinguish the African, to distinguish the kind of haiku that can be written by Africans to compared to what is being written by the Europeans. So in short, I thought we could nativize, we could nativize the haiku by using it to tell the African story. So that is mainly the idea behind the Afriku, using the African story, using the haiku to tell the African story. So what I quickly did was that I met a friend on the internet who was also interested in this art form, because we had been writing and submitting to journals, and the journals were passionate about we guys using the art form to specifically tell about the African story as compared to the European haiku. So the idea was, then why don't we create a journal and give the opportunity for Africans to tell their stories from different parts of the world, so that the world will get to know that this is also a kind of haiku that specifically talk about the African story. So that is basically the idea behind the Afriku. So most of the poems that are written and sent to the journal for publication are poems that specifically tell the African story, but does not imitate does not specifically imitate the European type of haiku.
Thank you for that, Ajay. So, Philippa, there's a comment for you on Facebook. Philippa, my favorite female poet in South Africa.
Oh, man.
Someone says, so we'll definitely go to you. And then also,
thank you.
And my question for you, Philippa, is please engage us on what was your first encounter of haiku? And how did you encounter it? as a structure,
Okay, so
form?
I started formally studying poetry when I won a mentorship with a thing called Crossing Borders, and I had a mentor in the UK who was called John Lindley, and he just exposed me to a lot of different kinds of poetry. And I liked the idea of the haiku, because you have to do a lot with a very short amount of words, and you have to pay a lot of attention to the syllables. But then also it just felt like enough to say everything that I want to say. So then I discovered this. I was shown this other form, which is called haiban, which is a kind of an extension of the haiku, which includes also another larger poem or a small piece of prose. So then I started writing haiban. I wrote a few of those, and I discovered that there was a competition in Japan called the Kikakuza Haiban competition. And every year you could send your haiban in, and then you get commentary. So I'm this weird person who likes to enter competitions so I can get commentary. Like, for me, that's the best prize. And so I learned so much from that, because these people, the whole idea of the haiban is that the haiku at the end is what distinguishes a haiban. The ones that win are the ones with the best haiku at the end. And also I loved the idea also when I studied, I started reading more about it, and I was fascinated by Basho, who really popularized the form. And they used to actually do it like in these tea houses where they'd have these kind of haiku competitions, and it was almost like spoken word, because they believed that the poem was dead once the ink was dry. So it had to be really immediate, something that you studied in a library. It was something that was very fresh, very new, and something that people were just doing.
Thank you for that, Philippa. Were you continuing?
No, I was just going to say that I'm quite bad at it. I wouldn't say that I'm very good at writing haiku. I think my haiku are probably the worst in this whole panel. And that's why I came here, because I wanted to learn. I was hoping that I would get some feedback, because, like, I don't know. I think I'm too rough with them, Anyway, let's hear from someone else.
No, I wanna let's stick to what are the commentaries that you've received, Philippa? I don't think you're bad, because I'm learning. I'm here as just,
So look, I mean, even though I actually did win a prize for this one competition in 2016, I did win a prize, but in the commentary, one of the judges said that I was using a thing called a pathetic fallacy, right? Which is something that poets often do. So they make the trees cry leaves, they give human characteristics to inanimate objects, which is called a pathetic fallacy. So even though the other two judges gave me, like a little award, the other judge said, no, this is pathetic. So I'm also very aware of myself doing that, because I do have that way of turning like raindrops into little children and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you, Philippa. I like the daring to actually talk back to the form with its people, like in dialogue with Japanese people, and making commentary and entering competition, right? And
Yeah.
therefore, and how the form starts to actually collapse the borders across. So that just gets me excited. Soli, please.
Hello.
Hi, please tell us about your first encounter with haiku poetry and your journey into haiku.
So firstly, thank you very much for having us here. So I'm actually like blushing here because in here they're like my favorites. And another thing being that like Dr. Rafael is actually the person who introduced me to haiku. So every time when we have those and reading his articles, and actually his haiku is one of my favorites that I always use when I'm giving an example. So I remember it was 2017 at Zanzibar Poetry Academy. That's when I met Dr. Rafael in class, and then since then I fell in love with haiku. And I'm one of those people who can say like I find it so difficult to write one. So like the ones that I just write, I'm there like, yeah, are you even one? But I
The
think
same.
yeah, it's fun. It's more fun even reading haiku because you be like you're reading more and you're reading more and you're uncovering more things from it. And another thing that I got to realize is that the more I studied haiku, my poetry became better. Um, because if there was a thing as photography in poetry, haiku would be that because of the imagery and on how it really gives us the specifics and the plot twists. You know, a whole movie in 3 lines, as just lived as it is. So that's when I actually fell in love with poetry to a point that I love the fact that I don't have to go through my notes. If someone asks me what haiku is, and that have to stop me and like, yeah, Kana, you said this is what happens with haiku. With haiku, do you still stand with that? I still do that, and I'll still attempt to write more haiku. As bad as I am at it, I'll still continue doing so because it's fun having something to fail at while still continue with it. And with doing so, I believe that's one of the reasons I'm here, and it's an honor that I am actually here speaking haiku with my favorite people.
Thank you very much. So you're such a theater maker. You know, we've got a line in theater: we feel better and we feel better, right? Because you have to
Yes,
create. That's beautiful.
yes,
So when you said fail, I was like, the theater is coming up.
yes,
If you can just prepare, I'll go back to you before I'm gonna go to, and just if you can just prepare that favorite haiku of
yeah.
Raphael's to read, right? We
Yes,
start.
it's on the screen. It's here.
Okay. Kumani, please tell us about your encounter and your journey into haiku. Is Fumani there? Okay, cool. So can you please read that haiku of Raphael's?
Also, let me before, since Fumane is frozen, let me add something to what Soli said. Is literally very humble. I remember him as a very good haiku writer, as well as Fumane. You know, of all the young poets that I taught this form, they really stood out from day one. And I want to say he's also a very brave young poet, because he's, you know, very well known. He's a slam champion, and you know, is a star in that space. And to bring haiku in the slam space is one of the bravest thing I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
And so I want to commend him for that. I've said it to him before, but I want to do it publicly. That was
Fumani's
something like
back.
Yeah.
amazing to watch. And sorry, Fumani, I
Thank
was
you
just
very
kicking
much.
in while you were frozen. Back to you.
Okay, Fumani, my question is, and thank you, Raf, for giving Saul his flowers publicly. Fumane, please tell us about your encounter of haiku and your journey into this practice of poetry.
I feel like I'm just gonna repeat Soichi's his monologue on how he got introduced to haiku, because Dr. F it.
Oh.
It was like it was very new to poetry, right? When I came into the space, I'd never imagined that I was going to it, or that this was something that I wanted to do, you know. And I think it was with the Zanzibar Poetry Academy, if I'm not mistaken, and Dr. Raf was there, and he introduced this crazy thing that got my mind going. Like, you have to capture an entire moment in time, right? in these 3 lines, and then there's this juxtaposition and these syllables, and like there were so many rules that like got my mind going, and I wrote a lot of terrible haikus. I don't think anyone is ever like, I'm great at writing haikus. Like I wrote a lot of terrible ones. But yeah, I'm still writing terrible haikus. But I'm enjoying it. I mean, I've been reading a lot of haikus as well. I've been checking out like South African haikus and, and whatnot. And I see like people are writing haiku in Afrikaans. Which was like, okay, like could you do it in Setswana? Could you do it in Sizulu? You know, what would the rules be on that? You know, so I think it's an ongoing conversation. There's so much to say about it. There's so much to learn, discover, create. So like, yeah. And thank you for having me. And thank you to Poetry Africa as well for this platform. This is great.
You're welcome. And I'm going to go to just one comment on Facebook. If you guys have questions, please come through with them. Language per language, and there will be so many languages in Afriku. On a note that note, Ajay.
That's the Zimbabwean.
Yes, I'll be happy to take that question. Yes, so that there will be so many languages in Africa. Yes, that is true. There has been a lot of publications in haiku, not just by way of people making an attempt to publish a single poetry. As we speak now, we have a lot of haiku collections that were even published last year and this year, and I'm so happy to tell you that African poets are making effort to publish in their own native language. As we speak now, we have African haiku collection published in Yoruba by one. We have one, Taufik Ayemi. Last year he came out with a collection titled Across the Moon, which was a bilingual collection written in English and Yoruba.
Wow.
Also, and the happy news is that the book is online for free. It's online for free. When you get to African Haiku Network website, we have one of our tabs with the inscription free books for download. They are haiku books written by African poets who are making effort to propagate or to spread haiku and not charging anything. They publish for free. They put their works there for free. And Afriku, which happens to be my first debut collection, was also a bilingual collection written in my native language, which is Twi, or the Akan language. So if I should show you, you could see that, I don't know if you can see from...
You can read, Ajay, you can read one of the poems in your language. Which language, and just state to the viewers which language you're speaking. You don't even have to translate it.
So let me read one of them, which happens to be my favorite. So I'll read the Twi version and the English version. The Twi version first, because it's Afriku. Haiku written in African language, or haiku with African perspective. Say that Mofra Brimin Kaibi, Dia Atinting who are na ena deso bidie. Mofra Brim Nkaibi, Dia Atinting who are ena deso bidie. So I read the English version. So that childhood memories, the wood shaving that lightens up mother's charcoal. Childhood memory, the wood shaving that light up mother's charcoal. So this like when I was a kid, my mother used to send me to the carpenter's shop. So at the carpenter's shop, we guys can get the wood shaving and we bring it to the house to light up the charcoal. So that is Afriku. You know, Africans often light up fire in that way. So my mother sends me to the carpenter's shop to collect wood shavings, and when I bring it, he puts it under the coal pot to light up the charcoal. So it was something that it was a moment that I thought I could capture with haiku. So what I'm trying to say is that Afriku is spreading by way of different languages. And for now, we can mention that African haiku have been written in Yoruba, African haiku have been written in Igbo, and African haiku have been written in Twi, which is one of the language which is widely spoken in many parts of West Africa. And I can also mention that we also have other African haiku poets who have also been writing in Arabic, and it's very common in Egypt, Morocco, and Algeria. We have some lecturers who are doing so well, and I can mention the likes of Hosni Hutami, who is a lecturer in one of the Egyptian university. He has been writing copiously African haiku in Arabic and spreading it so well. And we also have Abdel Ben Said, who is also writing haiku in Arabic and propagating it. So African haiku is not just growing by way of English language, it is also growing by way of our native language.
And that's fabulous, Ajay. And what you say so beautifully. I feel like I know online you can sing songs from Cape to Cairo. Like that's what we've got a South African song. I don't know if it's South African, which goes, you'll travel across. And what you've just described is haiku traveling across. All the way from the south of Africa, all the way to the north of Africa. If you now starting to bring Egypt, I want to go to Seoul, and also it's buzzing on our chat. We haven't had this buzz, so I've got questions, and I'm gonna bring in everyone online, guys. So now and then. So can you please read Raphael's haiku? Are you ready to read it?
I am ready. Here it is. Black mamba coiled in sugarcane field, scythe glistening. I should read that again. Black mamba coiled in sugarcane field, scythe glistening. So that's one of my favorite haiku by Dr. there. So yes.
And why is it your favorite? So and Raphael, I'll go to you. Why did you write it?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why it was my favorite is firstly the image. The image of it is so clear, and it is captured. I felt like I'm walking in that field, and I felt like I could see the sugar cane. And then another thing that happens is the comparison that is in there. Being the scythe, as we know that it is used to cut, whether it's the sugar cane or whatever grass that we have. And then now we have the black mamba, which now in this, we're considering it to be a scythe that actually might cut someone's lifespan, might cut your life. If you're meant to live tomorrow, now it might be the end for you right now. So that is one of the reasons why I actually enjoyed that. And this is how I see haiku. How I remember when I was starting with it, because it was so difficult actually going into it. The first thing that I would see with haiku is, I'll call it the natural environment, of which the natural environment that we have in this time, we have the sugarcane field, right? And then we have something that we know is common there. And the thing that is common, we see number one, the sugarcane, of course, and then another thing being the scythe that might be more common, as much as it's not always there. And then now we have this, I use the word intruder usually for them. We have this intruder, which actually is the reason why there is this form of twist. And that intruder is the black mamba. And that's where the story or the image or the natural environment is disturbed. I'll use the word disturbed. And that is why I usually use this one as an example, because it's clear and it's precise, and it gives you no confusion when it comes to the intention of what a haiku is. And also because of when I heard of haiku, it was more on like the counting than what is a haiku. So getting to run into a haiku where I can do something beyond the counting and the 3 lines that I could know about that. That's why I was excited, and I became a child for the first time in haiku, and then I really enjoyed that.
And I'll go to a comment that kind of speaks back to what you're saying right now, the form. Because I also, when I heard the definition, I heard form, right? And the counting. So Zizi Pop Bam says, this conversation on form has always been a tedious one for me, simply because where they come from. I love that we as Africans are changing and archiving our own forms and in our own times, right?
Yes.
So, Raf, if you can be ready to answer why and how this poem came about. Ajay, wait, but I need to get my sisters in, right? These men mustn't take over. We must, Jay. Now, Ajay, because keep the image of a mamba. And so we're coiling, and I'm gonna get back to you about that one. Keep that image of a mamba. So
Okay.
Raphael, and then I'll go to my sisters afterwards.
Thank you, Ngeza, and thank you, Soli, for appreciating that haiku, and that particular one gives me the opportunity to continue this conversation. That haiku in particular is the first one I ever published, and I published it in the journal, the Mamba, and it was in Mamba number 2. Not only was in Mamba number 2, but it was the opening. It was chosen as the opening haiku of Mamba number 2, and I found out about Afriku from Mamba issue number 1, and I was so inspired. I didn't write a haiku before then, but I went through that first issue, day and night, and I became more and more, captivated by this idea, as Ajay say, of using this form and then taking it and adapting it to the environment where I'm living, which is South Africa, right? And obviously, even in a very naive way, I say, okay, the first haiku has to be about the Mamba. That's the name of the journal, And as Soli was saying, that haiku in particular gets all the element of the traditional haiku, the idea of an image that refers to the sea, to a certain season, the juxtaposition of the images, all the different elements, but it's set in Africa and tells a story that is also metaphorical. So when IJ, who I met at that point as the editor of the journal, told me that it was accepted and it was placed, as the first haiku of the journal of that issue, that I realized that, well, maybe, because I don't consider myself an expert at all. I'm learning. I'm far from being an expert in haiku, but I've been guided by Ajay. I mean, every time I have haiku, I submit it to him, because we have this platform for African writers, which is the Mamba, which is amazing. It has been raising me as a haiku writer. So he's the one who will tell me, your haiku works, then I publish it. It doesn't work, goes to the trash bin. And, but fortunately that one, encouraged me to write more and to submit more and to keep this experiment of writing African stories using this form that, for me in particular, as Soli again said, is fantastic for poets, because haiku teaches you the quintessential idea of writing for a poet. And so thank you for Ajay again to create that space for us. And, and give us the opportunity to be published and grow as haiku writers. He's literally my mentor.
A pleasure.
There's a lot of mentorship going on here. We can see. Money across and beyond. Fumane, I'll just go to you. If you can just start to read some of the haiku that you want to share, and if you can just please, if you're reading someone's haiku, let us know why you chose that one.
So I had to, upon, being invited to this talk, I just went through every single piece of haiku I could find. I just read and read and read. And I came across this one by Isa. And it says, a world of dew. And within every dewdrop, a world of struggle. And I'm a person who's obsessed with images, right? And I just saw each line is is kind of like a close-up on this moment, like you're in the field and there's all these dewdrops, and then you zone in on this one dewdrop, and then you zone within, and there's an entire world within a dewdrop, and that just was an insane image for me, and it's by Issa, and I absolutely love it. I think the ones in Afrikaans for me were quite exciting. Okay, I don't know, I can hear feedback. Is that from my end?
We're having challenges with Philippa's connection. You can go on now.
I'm sorry, Ntlebani. Sorry, Fumani.
No problem.
Go for it.
So I'll also
Fumani, can you please go back to what you were saying, because we missed it.
Repeat.
All right, so it's a haiku by Issa, and it's with a world of dew within every dewdrop, a world of struggle. And now we have these images, right? It's the field of dew, and then you zone in on the dewdrop, in on the dewdrop world within that. I mean, that's insane for someone to write in 3 sentences, And I think it's inspired me. I wrote a haiku recently. I sent it. No, it sounds like another one. I've heard this before, and I was like, this is what I'm trying to avoid. I see so many beautiful images, and I mean, there's so much color and so much capturing of a moment, And I'm trying not to plagiarize. I'm doing my best, but this is my favorite. It is my favorite. I'm gonna keep it close to me.
And thank you for Fumani.
Can I ask Fumani to read her haiku published in Mamba? Do you have them with you?
I do.
While you look for them, I'm just going to go to the comment session. So I'm just trying to juggle. What a beautiful panel. Thank you all for your wisdom. A question of controversy of syllable count as a prominent of the idea that form follows function. I've been wondering about the specific function of the 575 count. What purpose does exact structure serve, especially since it's merely adapted from Japanese to English? And would this function be lost in other iterations of syllable count? But on hold that thought, Fumani, if you can just start to read. That is the question for all of us. But can you start to read, Fumani?
Okay, so I will read this one because I'm obsessed with sunflowers. Returning to South Africa, the scent of sunflower field, my favorite. Oh, I must say, I can't believe I wrote that, hey? And then with the question that we got, sheesh, I struggle as well with that, because I feel like with every poetry form, we have rules, sonnets, etc., etc. I mean, in sports, there's rules, there's a time limit, there's handball, there's this and that. But poetry is also a space for us to play. It's a creative space. We just come, we try things out, we play, we change things. It's a colorful space. So I struggle with the idea of changing the form. But we should allow for metamorphosis in writing, I think.
That comment was from Jamil Roshani. I just wanted to say that.
I also felt like Ajay's tweet high felt like a lot of syllables. Do you allow yourself for more in tree?
Are you talking about leafless tree? The leafless tree poem?
Yeah.
Yes. When I'm writing haiku, haiku is a very delicate genre of poetry regarding the structure, 575 structure. But when I'm writing haiku, I can write in both versions, 575, and sometimes I also don't stick to 575. My key focus is on the moment, or what we usually call your ability to capture, observe, and capture the key element which can which the reader can be part of it and explain it in his or her own way. So what I usually do is that I focus on the moment first to use the words, simple words as I can to capture the moment without not focusing on the on on the syllables. Like I should write specifically 17 syllables. So most of the haikus that I write is not 17 syllables, even though I can also write in 17 syllables. So the leafless tree is somehow less than seven syllables. Sorry, 17 syllables.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So I would like to read two, because I always write poems with my students, and then we have a competition to say whose was the best, and mine's always the worst. But this is for my two poetry students from this year's class, the honors class. The girl with purple hair, a wind inside a closed room, scribbling breathlessly. The one with the shoulders takes a drink of water, fiddles with their pen, deliberates. So it's not enough nature. It's wrong, isn't it?
I will say I will hardly say so, because the word nature is a bit dicey. That's why I'm saying that haiku is a very delicate form. Even what might be nature to somebody may not be nature to the other person. And excuse me to make the discussion a little bit complicated. We also have a haiku cousin called the senru. We say the haiku is about nature, and senru is about human nature. It also captures the beauty of human nature in three lines, in brevity, in just a brief form, like what the haiku. Even contemplate that humans are also part of nature, so there shouldn't be any distinction between a form of haiku that talks about nature and a form of haiku that talks about human nature, which is what is senru. So what may be considered as nature is highly dependent on the decision of the editor. So every editor has his own rules regarding what might sound like nature and what might not maybe fall under nature. So I would say that talking about looking at that poem is not totally out of nature. It's somehow related to nature.
Fabulous. Jamil says, "Oh, I remember this moment. Thank you, Philippa." And then I'll go to Zizipo's question, and I think this is for everyone, Raphael. But I'd like you to take it on first. I have a question about the idea of following the rules of haiku. Have you found any freedom within the constraints of the form?
This takes me back. So I think there was a conversation that happened. It was last week, if I remember quite well. So I was sharing this. I remember sharing a memory on haiku, and then it became a conversation that extended on: is it haiku if it doesn't follow the 575?
Yeah.
And then I remember we went into the counting. Yes, so this is how we started it, or more like how I see it. We have what I call the counting, which I don't like starting with, and then we have the actual elements of a haiku. The counting, I usually don't focus on it before. I deal with it later, because everyone can count. We just need to know what we are counting, right? So now going on the counting, we go into, if we're starting with the traditional haiku, then we realize that they have sound than syllables. Actually, they have, like, for example, hiragana, which is just how they say something like su, she. That's like two. We know that we have syllables, and in some African languages we have, I would say we have more sounds than syllables. For example, in Sepedi, we have what we call dinoko. So dinoko meaning that, like, it's those sounds. So I think what happens is that how I've been approaching it so far is that because of the controversy of of the counting, I had, so far I've been doing it as like 17 being a maximum in terms of that. But if I'm breaking that rule as well in terms of the traditional one, I would do it routinely, knowing why I'm doing that. And also at the same time, it does not mean that I'm not able to accommodate the 757, right? The beautiful haikus that I felt like they were really beautiful in their not following of the 575. So as much as there's a constraint, I allow myself to be free in it so that I can have both. And also in attempting to write haiku, the ones that are not haiku end up becoming beautiful poems and additions to certain poems or to starting or to ending of poems. So that's how I usually approach it, because I write haiku not specifically to write haiku, but I write haiku to write something. And if I end up with a haiku, it's a beautiful thing. And if I don't end up with a haiku, it's still a beautiful thing in another thing. So whereby in another poem, or even if it's standing on its own. So that's how I do it. I use the constraints as freedom as well.
Can I please ask a question?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. We don't have much minutes, but go ahead.
Does Solly have a haiku in Sepedi?
That's a very good question. I did. I lost it. I remember it was in 2018 or 19. I had one, but these things of losing phones. And the good thing was that it was easy to have.
Oh, we lost Solly, but he'll come back, I believe. Raphael, so can you engage Zizi Po's question, and also if you can just start sharing some of your haiku poems, and you know if you choose someone's haiku to read someone, you just justify it.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, don't worry. We don't apologize. Yeah. We wing it, yeah.
So as I was saying like it was easy. It was easy to have the 17 syllables because of the structure of Sepedi, because we have sounds. We have like for example, ko, which means gogo, or which means grandma. It's literally like ko, which means like two sounds, meaning that we count it as two. So it's really easy in that case, in that context of like using Sepedi as that. It would be actually I should do that. I should do that more. I think I need more of those since I lost the ones that I had.
Thank you so much, Soli. That was quite enlightening. Now I want to write one in Xhosa and Zulu. Raphael.
Yes, first of all, I really hope that we will see more and more haiku in African languages here in South Africa, since we have a variety of languages that allow for a lot of experimentation. So I look forward to that. And then to go back to the old, question 575, I always say that for me it's not even an issue. I mean, simply because in English 757 is not a point. There is a long literature about the fact that we don't have to do that in English. 575, apply to the Japanese language. In fact, if I try to write a haiku, usually, the average count in syllables for me is maybe 11, 12, 13 syllables. And if I try to extend it to 17, I will make my poem, worse, more redundant, more verbose. So to stretch it in order to stick to the form is to actually violate the form itself, the way I see it, and the way many other people see it. One among others is Kwame Dose, the professor, famous poet. I say that insisting in the 575 is asinine. It's simply silly in English, because the rules that apply to the Japanese, and in the context in which haiku was born, as Filippo say, as a performance with certain syllabic pattern, just doesn't work. There are two different languages, and English doesn't really have to follow the 575. I mean, for me, it's not anymore something that I pay too much attention to. There are those who follow it, and there's space for them as well. But I mean, 95% of the haiku that are in the English language, they don't follow 575, and they are beautiful haiku. There are other things that define what a haiku is, and we've spoken about it today, but definitely not the syllables.
Thank you, Raphael. We don't have much, but because haikus are short, We've got 5 minutes left. And so, Raphael, you can, if you can please just read a few of yours.
Wow, I feel like I'm the only one reading here, and I'm not even so prolific. I'm gonna read that was published in Mamba, the very last issue, Mamba number 14, which was published a few days ago.
Yeah.
And it goes like this.
Okay.
Crackling fireplace. Cats gather to sleep on the carpet. That was mine. Then one other haiku that I like a lot by Hoda Hajid from Tunisia, published in a past issue of the Mamba, goes like this: dying in a girl's braid, saffron flower. Another was a Pra from Ghana. Coming storm, a tightrope walker halts midway. And that's my selection for now.
Okay, it's buzzing there with the audience. First of all, when we're done, can someone go and type the website of the Africa haiku? We don't have much time. And are there any links available for the follow-up, right? And what my question is going to be, it's just, I've got so many questions. And let me just check if we've got time. Is there room to have an exchange program of haiku engagement within the various countries that you guys have named, even in Egypt, South Africa? Do you as practitioners see that opportunity?
Yes, I will say so. Back here in Ghana, we have the Ghana Haiku Society, which is a group of haiku poets which is existing here. Yeah, what we do basically is to share our poetry online. We share it on a WhatsApp platform and give comments back and forth. I've also observed that we also have the Egyptian Haiku Society. There's also one in Morocco, and there's also one in Nigeria, Nigerian Haiku Society. They have a small group over there. So I think it's a very fine way of spreading the haiku act. And I don't know if South Africa also, Raphael, you also have a small group at your end. All these are platforms that we can use to expand the haiku act, apart from maybe using the journal or the Mamba as a way of us promoting the African haiku. And as I did not also talk about the Mamba, I think time is, we don't have much time at the moment. But in short, I adapted the title Mamba because Mamba was a unique snake of Africa in the savannas. Yeah, when the journal was born, we were contemplating between some names that could be specific to Africa. The idea of baobab tree came into mind. We were thinking of the naming the Mamba, the journal baobab, Mamba, and another word, I've forgotten it, but we settled on Mamba because we were thinking that it was a kind of unique creature to Africa. So once we mention Mamba, then it gives you an idea of an African journal. So all of us should help promote the Mamba as a way of spreading the African haiku. There should be a platform for that. Else we'll be people seeing our work.
Thank you, Ajay. There's many requests, right?
Yeah.
A platform, societies, links available to follow up. And I still think you guys must go and continue the conversation on Facebook. Philippa, I just heard you about to say something.
No, I mean, I really loved the conversation, and Ajay, I'm definitely going to be sending you haiku. You guys, you're going to be hearing from me. I need to get these out there, and I need to get that. So I've got one called Defiance. The peach tree by the front door burst in before the snow's beauty show. I don't know.
Right way.
Can you try again, Philippa? Just if you can repeat, because we lost you a bit there.
Okay, the title is Defiance. The image. The peach tree by the front door burst into bloom before the snow's beauty show.
Thank you so much. And why did you write that one? Quickly, short.
It was the cold front, and this peach tree had these blossoms, you know, and it was the day that it snowed in Joburg.
Oh, fabulous. So here we are sharing Ajay's. Thank you very much, Philippa. Ajay's images and of
Beautiful.
his haikus.
I had wanted to talk about this particular haiku. In short, you know, one thing I've observed about haiku in Africa, one of the themes that has been so much explored is the theme of Hamatan. Is the theme of Hamatan. And there is this particular haiku that I love so much. Say the Hamatan wind, the creaking door lifts its voice. Hamatan, the creaking door lifts its voice. You know, Hamatan is a dry wind, the dry wind in West Africa. It usually comes during the December, January, around that area. And we experience dry season, and a lot, nature becomes dry. So the door over there loses the water in it, and it becomes so dry that when you are closing the door, it starts to creak. It makes that kind of noise. So those of you who would like to know more about Hamatan and how it has been used in haiku, when you go to African Haiku Network or our Facebook platform, there was a series that we ran on Hamatan that people submitted a lot of work to explore the theme of Hamatan, in haiku. And I think there are beautiful works there for you to read and enjoy and get to know more about Hamatan. So this is one of the haiku that I love so much that I wish you could also maybe read and enjoy as well.
Thank you so much, Ajay. So if everyone can just engage Mamba Journal online and search for it and found it. And we start to grow this body of work that is already growing. I learned so much from you. As you can tell, like I've moderated so much, but it's just been, this is the one panel where it's just been buzzing. And I will end, because I love audiences engaging and collapsing borders and of online beyond. I'll end with Kurt. Thank you for the fine poetry and perspectives.
Yeah. And a quick one. The one who wanted to know about the Mamba Journal can trace the Mamba Journal at African Haiku Network. When you Google African Haiku Network, it will take you to the website. And we have a lot of information over there for you regarding African haiku.
Awesome.
And sorry, Ajay, add that the journal is free. It's there's books, as you said, free to download. There's a lot of material, articles.
All the materials.
So there's a lot.
Yeah, every material there is for free. Yeah. All the books are for free. All the journals are for free. You can download and get a lot of information. And people have written a lot of scholarly information also in the journal, and you can read. It's unfortunate that we can't talk about everything. We do that now. Yeah.
And Pralini says, thank you for the rich conversation and fabulous questions. It's buzzing there. And we've come to the end of our discussion. Thank you very much at home, and thank you to our audiences who made this discussion come alive, and thank you to our poets. You guys were wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.